What is up, everybody? We got Monday Night Football. I'm a little under the weather, but I'm still hype. Last time we were on stream, Austin was at his family's house. Today, I'm at my family's house to balance it out, but we got some great football ahead of us. Austin, how you doing, brother?
I'm good, man. I think I sound a little bit better than you today, so
Yeah, absolutely.
Hope you're feeling a little better, but I know being under the weather is a shitty deal. Maybe a 2-0 sweep though today could help that out.
No kidding. Yeah, I was feeling fine all day yesterday and then started feeling like shit. So I was like, you know what? Let me add DeAndre Swift receiving yards to my card. Maybe I'm due for a little good juju to balance it out. And I was. We got a little first half cash. So hopefully that continues today.
Literally. Hey, do you have this streaming off YouTube too, Will?
I do.
Okay. I just had someone comment saying, is this not on YouTube? So
yeah, Masterclass Analytics.
Cool.
If you can't find it on YouTube, that's what you should look up. We miss you down in Miami, Austin. Would have been dope to meet you. Any dope food spots you went to? Austin, did we hit any food? We did hit a food spot. What was it?
Honestly, we were there for a lot of work, and it was a lot of like watching football. Honestly, I feel like the food stuff, like, didn't we DoorDash and Uber?
Shuckers.
Huh?
Shuckers, was that the name of it?
Oh yeah, that was one spot we went to. I was gonna say, I feel like the group like
we actually went to eat at.
It was more takeout stuff.
Yeah,
you know.
We already got people feeding winners in the chat. Saquon touchdown, Austin Eagles boy. How we feeling about that one?
I mean, I like it. I think obviously he's gonna see an uptick in touches with AJ Brown off, but I don't know. I feel like they're gonna plan for Saquon as well. Like, you know what I mean. So you and I obviously we'll get into our spot, but we're targeting a different spot in this game. I think Saquon gets a bump, obviously. Dallas Goedert gets a bump, obviously, but there's going to be other guys on this team that have to step up and be involved. And so, I mean, we can just get right into it. You and I know we're all over Jahan Dotson today.
Oh, yeah. I think with A.J. Brown out, one of the things that always makes the Eagles so hard to defend is you can't just plan to target the run or target the offense because they can realistically go both ways. With Saquon in the backfield and A.J. Brown being out, if I'm the Atlanta Falcons coach, obviously it's easier than it sounds. But I just say, hey, we're stacking the box. We're stopping Saquon. We're not going to let Jalen Hurts break out of the pocket. And if we lose to Dotson and Devonta Smith making catches, then we lose that way. Like, that's your best route if you're the Falcons coach. And I think if I had to guess, that's the way they go. I really like the Falcons run defense. I don't think they're like top 3 or anything, but I do think they're a top 10 run defense. So if they accompany that with a probable game plan of forcing them to pass the ball, I think Saquon will get his. He'll get plenty of opportunities. He's a fucking dog. But if I'm a betting man, which I am, I'm targeting the Eagles pass game.
I agree. I think Saquon's obviously in such a good spot, but his lines are already priced at that spot, you know? Like, I feel like there's not a ton of – I mean, he could go for 200 yards today, honestly. Who knows? But –
I mean, 17.5 rush attempts is a lot.
Yeah. But the thing is, he doesn't share the backfield with anyone. Like, they don't want Gainwell touching the rock, you know? Like, he's cool for pass downs, but Saquon's that guy. They're going to use him like how the Niners used McCaffrey last season, you know? He's going to get 20-plus touches every single game.
Yeah, but do we think that the Falcons try and have a little more time possession? What was the time of possession in that Packers game? I actually never checked.
I think it was honestly pretty even. I could be wrong a little, but it felt like that one.
Because I feel like with the 2 red zone possessions and then the 2 big D or Jaden Reed possessions, I feel like the Eagles probably
turned it over 3 times. So like you know what I mean?
I'm checking now. No, this is
like
players.
The first quarter, the Eagles didn't have the ball at all.
Yeah, but Saquon didn't really get any work. So the Eagles still had 33 minutes in time of possession. I imagine without those turnovers and the big play, it's more like 38, 40. I feel like the Falcons probably handle the clock a little bit more. Not even handle the clock, but I don't think they have those 80-yard big plays, 60-yard big plays that the Packers had. So it goes both ways with turnovers, but I'm just trying to think of outs in terms of Saquon not getting the same workload. Because 24 touches or rush attempts is a lot. Like, I don't think that's
plays. You know, a Jahan Dotson 80-yard touchdown down the end would certainly help you and I.
Like that, wouldn't
Saquon wouldn't love that. So I think it's going to take big plays. I'm not taking any Saquon unders. I've told you. I think that
No,
this
no.
guy is insane with this team, but I can't play his lines today.
Yeah, I'm not advising any unders. I probably should have been clear about that. I've seen a lot of people play both him and Bijan today, and I think there's a lot of ways it could go wrong for both of them.
That's fair. What do you think of Dallas Goedert? Because I can give you my opinion on him after.
It's going to depend on how much they actually want to use Dotson. Because I can't remember if it was Smith or AJ Brown, but I know last season I looked into when one of them's out, Goddard's touches go up like crazy. But it was a small sample size, and now they have Dotson instead of Olamide Zaccheaus as the wide receiver too now. So I think, and now Saquon. So I think a lot of it depends on the deployment of the people filling in more so than just Goddard himself. But if it's the same as last season, Goddard's probably good for 6 and 65.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think it's a good assumption. I think it's interesting the books have him priced under 4.5 receptions. I think it's kind of the right price. Hurts just doesn't really love the tight end. I feel like as a diehard Eagles fan that watches every game, it just doesn't feel like Goddard gets utilized as well as he should be for the quality of player he is. You know, it feels kind of like the Kyle Pitts situation where like he has a lot of games with 3 grabs and he's a really good player. So I'm interested to see how, because this is like the time for him to step up with AJ out. You know, I'm interested to see if he's actually impactful here.
I think some of it is just usually the tight end's a security blanket. If you don't have your receiver 20 yards down the field, you're hitting your tight end on the out route for 4 yards. When you're Jalen Hurts, you don't need the blanket. You just tuck it and run.
Run for 4 yards yourself.
Yeah.
That's fair.
And obviously, like somebody like Lamar and Josh Allen, it's not the case for them, but I think their game plan is much more intentional to incorporate their tight ends. They use bigger formations. They have more play action. That's not as much the case with the Eagles. It's more just a traditional running player, traditional passing play, I feel like, at least last season. But new offensive coordinator, we'll see how much that changes.
Yeah, that's fair. I like that.
Goddard, I'm trying to look at his routes in week 1 versus last season. He ran a route on 66.7% of snaps in week 1. Last season, that number was 76%. So probably goes up a little bit with AJ Brown, but we'll see.
I bet he plays. I bet Goddard plays 100% snaps this week. Honestly,
no, not snaps, routes. So like sometimes if the quarterback's blitz or something, they'll tell the tight end to stay or like at least chip or something.
Gotcha.
Or if there's a screen play, they're not running a route; they're going out to help block.
And you said Dotson had 60% share last week.
Yeah. So let me pull it back up just to make sure we're sharing the right numbers. Jahan Dotson in week 1 was 59% snap share. If I want to look at second half alone,
that's a good share for like all the mouths Philly had last week.
There was only one other wide receiver to get snaps, and it was Retain Covey. He ran 3 routes.
Good old Britton Covey. He's the punt returner. He's not gonna see very many snaps.
That's why I'm like, I don't think anybody else is slotting in for those AJ Brown snaps because nobody was on the field for the wide receiver 3 snaps other than Jahan Dotson.
The only guy they have a tall receiver. I'm blanking on his name. I think it's Walker is the last name or something. He's someone they just got a rookie late that's on the 53 that could play some outside receiver. I saw him out there. They threw a fade ball to him. I can't remember his name, but that's the only other guy I could see.
There's Grant Calcaterra, but he's the tight end.
No, not Grant Calcaterra. I think it's Johnny Wilson might be his name.
Yeah. Oh, Wilson. Yeah. JJ mentioned him in the YouTube video. Yeah, Johnny Wilson, he ran 2 routes, 30 air yards on 1 target.
They threw a fade ball to him out of bounds, but he's the only guy. That's what I was wondering with Dotson a little bit is if they're going to slide him outside or if they're going to try to get Johnny Wilson some reps. I know the Eagles loved him this preseason and like this training camp. So obviously don't know a ton about him because he's a late pick out of college, but he's an interesting guy to note.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I think he's probably one of those. Who was the dude on the Raiders a while ago? Brian Edwards, where it was like, hey, we're going to throw you out there. You're going to run nothing but 10 go routes just to open up the formation.
Just
and
run the
then you're probably
9.
gonna sit back on the bench. Yeah.
Yeah, you're just out there to I mean, he's a big body, gives you a look, if you get man coverage, maybe you try it, but I don't think they're gonna see him running a ton of different routes.
No. Do you remember Brian Edwards, by the way? I completely forgot about him
Yeah,
until just
that was
now.
a good pull. That
The
was a good
the
pull.
hype
He
around
wore
Brian
number, like
Edwards.
he wore number 89 or something, right? He had,
Yeah,
a ton
88, 89.
yeah,
But
he's
the
one of those high
comparisons every offseason is like this guy's a mix of Jerry Rice and Des Bryant. Everybody hyped him up, and then he'd come out
yeah,
for one catch for 18 yards every week.
it's like
I
Chase
miss those days.
Claypool.
Yeah. All right. What do we got next? Bijan Robinson. I know some people asked about him in the chat. He's another popular pick today. The Eagles' run defense is very interesting. The front four, elite. I expect them to finish pretty high up in the rankings and stuff percentage this season. The issue is, if you get past that front four, it's probably a 20-yard run. Their linebackers, we've known for years, have not been very good. Vic Fangio plays light boxes. That's like his traditional thing. He doesn't stack the box. So if Bijan Robinson breaks into that next level and the offensive line does their job, then he's going to have a good game. He's going to break off a couple runs. But that Eagles front four is so good that it'll probably be balanced out by multiple negative yardage rush attempts. So last year, the Dolphins, who Vic Fangio was defensive coordinator for before, had a very, very low explosive rush percentage, but a very high stuff percentage. Right now, for the Eagles, after 1 week, both are really high. If I had to guess, the explosive rush percentage is probably going to go down as the linebackers and the safeties get more assimilated into the new system. It's still early, so I don't really want to play with it. I don't want to take an over or an under, but I'm reluctant to just be like, oh, it's Bijan. He's good at football. We're just going to take his overs because you can do that for a lot of people.
Yeah, I'm interested there. I think Bijan and Jacobs are obviously completely different running backs. And what I noticed watching the Packers game is Wilson, the backup running back that came in both times out of gun personnel, had explosive runs. I think he had like an 18-yard and like an 11-yard. He had 2 really solid runs, both looks. And they were primarily under center with Jacobs in there. Bijan, I don't think is going to be under center as much. I think they will be in gun a little bit more. And so that's why I'm a little nervous to take any Bijan unders. I think his lines are getting really, really high, and it's getting like a super public bet. So I almost like looking at unders and when it gets to that point. But I know he's really dominant out of shotgun. And so I'm interested to see if Philly improves there, if that was just a small sample size because it was the backup running back and you thought it was going to be pass plays, because I don't know. I just don't have a great feel with Bijan this week. I think his receiving yards is obviously a safe look, but anytime you get 32 receiving yards for a running back, that's starting to get a little high.
Yeah, I think for his receiving, even though Vic Fangio loves to start too high in pre-snap, he likes to disguise it and go to single high after the snap, make the quarterback think a little bit. Traditionally, single high isn't great for running back receiving, but when you're in a situation with Kirk Cousins right now where he has zero mobility and he's going to look for more safer and underneath targets, Bijan is going to fit into there pretty nicely. So I think its line was at 27.5 last night, probably at 29.5 now.
It's
I
31
think he's going to have 31. See, that's a little too high.
I was going to say it's starting to get a
running
little high. I mean, he's a dominant route runner. Don't get me wrong, but it's just 31 and a half is a lot from the backfield, especially when you're getting 7-8 yard checkdowns. If they contain him well, that's going to take 4 or 5 catches to go over. I don't know. It's just starting to get a little tight.
It's not like he's running legit routes. Like I looked up his catchable air yards last game. It was minus 13, which makes sense for a running back, but that means it's a lot of checkdowns and screens. They're not getting out there running like quick routes. Like Jahmyr Gibbs does it a lot, where they'll move him pre-snap, they'll put him in the slot, and he'll run a legit route. Bijan's not doing it as much. He was getting most of his targets just straight out of the backfield. So to ask him to turn minus 13 air yards into plus 45 yards after the catch, you're asking for a lot. If anybody does it, of course it's Bijan. But like we have to be mindful of where the value on that line really is. Like we can say 30 yards is a great receiving game from running back, but it would still miss the prop.
Right. Yeah. Well, and also we haven't even mentioned like Tyler Algier last year, obviously different coach, different plan, but Bijan had 220 carries. Algier had 186. Were damn near the closest thing to a split backfield we've seen. And Algier played 10 snaps of the 50 last week. He was not involved. They've said they want to try to keep it backfield by committee a little bit. Obviously, it's going to favor Bijan more, but I would not be surprised to see more Algier here. Obviously, that doesn't help Bijan. He ran 3 routes last week. I bet you money we see him play more than 10 snaps. I bet you Algier plays closer to 15 to 20, which cuts into Bijan's load a lot, pause, but
Yeah. And Algier is good, dude. Like
he's a good player. Yeah.
Yeah, it's perfectly balanced where Bijan is your, hey, go make something happen, athletic as hell, can do it all, runner. And then you have Algier. It's like Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram. I see this the same way. Just Algier is a really, really good back that people don't realize how good he is because he's behind Bijan Robinson.
Yeah, and
So
the coach
obviously
said
Bijan should
they
be
were
on the field, but
the coach said they were playing through behind most of the game. Obviously, that favors Bijan. They just didn't have a flow with Algier to get him in there. So they're going to ride the hot hand, but I don't see him being a non-factor again. I think
yeah.
they are going to utilize him. And I don't know. If Philly does a good job with the run game, you're going to see the targets with Pitts. You're going to see like the cross the middle stuff. I don't love Drake London today, but I do like a lot of their other options in the receiving game.
I think Drake London will have a spot. I'm still confident in him on the season. I don't know that this is his matchup unless Atlanta goes out of their way to deploy him in scenarios where he's usually not, just because they want him to get the ball over their like slot receiver, for example, and put him in running more crossers instead of winning on the outside. If that happens, it happens. But assuming we're seeing a normal game plan, this just isn't his matchup.
Yeah, it seems like the spot where Philly matches up well. I think Slay can do a good job with him. It seems like one of the it feels like the worst matchup out of all the options. It just seems like the toughest one.
Darnell Mooney's in a little bit of a worse scenario.
You think?
Yeah,
you don't like
Mooney?
I think
so. He had 3 targets for I don't know how many air yards last week, something crazy. But I mean, people will complain that he should have gotten more because he's a deep ball player, and if he brought one in, he should have hit his lines. I know a lot of people were on it. He had 12 catchable air yards in week 1. Like that's not
good. He's gonna get Quinyon Mitchell. They're gonna give him a good amount of snaps, and he looked good last week.
I know.
So I kind of agree. I think Kirk Cousins, primetime, people are gonna take his unders because he looked like shit. You and I talked. I see him going over pass yards this week. I do. I think they're gonna be in a negative game script. I like Kirk Cousins pass, and I know that benefits your prop this week. I know it benefits Pitts, my prop. I don't know. I think people are being a little too hypercritical on him off one bad week. You saw what Bo Nix did in week 2 against this Pittsburgh defense. Both those guys had 0 success. That defense looks absolutely elite, maybe best in football so far through 2 weeks.
Yep, and I just pulled it up for Mooney. He had 15 yards on 3 targets, 40 air yards, but only 12 catchable air yards. 20 of them were like prayer air yards. So basically,
throw out of bounds.
He was double covered, overthrew it by like 10 yards, or just threw it out of bounds type of thing. So be careful looking at air yards. The only thing I will say, I wouldn't fade Mooney because of all the players, he actually had the highest route share on the team. Probably because of a lot of play action stuff where Pitt stays in and blocks and London's off the field. But something worth noting because he had a 2.5 line. Everybody hammered it. Didn't even come close. And now he's at 3.5. So something's fishy there.
They only had 50 offensive snaps. That was the lowest last week.
Yeah.
They only had 50 offensive snaps. They got destroyed on time of possession. Obviously, I think the Eagles can put drives together, but I don't think they get destroyed by 14 minutes or whatever it was last week. I think it's a little closer. And if it's a little closer, they're going to probably see 60 snaps.
Yep.
So that obviously benefits Mooney.
Somebody said, what do we think about Saquon receiving yards? I almost took the under just because Jalen Hurts doesn't use his running backs in the passing game. Now, A.J. Brown being out obviously changes things.
Yeah, I was going to say they're going to draw him something.
Yeah.
There's going to be a screen design play we see tonight, a couple of them, I would assume.
But, I don't I wouldn't play it just because it's the Eagles offense. It's the opposite of the Swift play I had last night. Swift, I knew his lines were undervalued because he had a bad week one. And he was coming from the Eagles who don't hit the running backs. So I knew his line was undervalued. This is the opposite. Saquon is coming from an offense who used the running backs heavily. He had a great week one in the receiving game. So I could see the line being overpriced now. I'm not taking the under, but that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think if I'm playing Saquon, I would personally lean his rush receiving yards just because I think he has the upside to break a big one, and you would hate
Yeah.
like his receiving is low enough where you could get it all off just the rushing alone. You know what I mean? And I think
Yeah.
Saquon's good enough to break a 40-yard screen pass, 50-yard screen pass. Like they're gonna use. I just know how this Eagles team works. Every time an injury comes down, they always try to like work in screen passes, gadget plays, little things to get the other obvious targets the ball. And
Yeah.
Saquon, I mean, we saw him last week. So I wouldn't take his unders personally, but I wouldn't be like hammering his receiving yard. I think you can probably be safer with rush receive personally.
Makes sense. There was another question in the chat that I missed. Any thoughts on Ray McLeod? He led Falcons receiving yards week one. So he's actually one of my favorite picks today. Probably going to be my only Falcons prop because I went back and watched obviously the stats. He had the most catchable air yards by far, 44 catchable air yards. He was the best against cover three, which is what the Eagles run a lot. He had 5 targets on 10 routes for his cover three, and he's the starting slot receiver. Those are just like the numbers and the details. I went back and watched the film. All his routes were intermediate to deep routes. All of them past the stick. So any target he's getting, you're assuming it's going to be, or any catch he's getting, you're assuming it's 10, 15 yards or more. And then when you look at the scheme of the whole offense, you realize he's running the intermediate route through the middle. Kyle Pitts is running the shallow route through the middle. So the read is basically just, is the linebacker deep or is he up on Pitts? And with what we saw from Kirk Cousins in week one, I assume that you're going to want to make him throw dangerous balls and throw it deep because he doesn't look like he can right now. So Ray McLeod did a really good job selling into zones. Cover three is a zone defense, so that works in his favor. And if they do step up on Pitts and force him to throw it downfield, Ray McLeod is going to have a lot of 10 to 20-yard receptions where he's just sitting in the zone wide open. So I think they're going to find him there. And somebody mentioned that the Eagles had terrible tackling in the secondary last week. That's true. I think that works in his favor. I don't know how much that's going to last. C.J. Gardner-Johnson is 9 times out of 10. He's got somebody in the open field. He's making the tackle. But I also don't think that affects Bijan as much because that depends more on the defensive tackles and the linebackers. But I think that was all I had there. Somebody said Falcons money line. Kind of agree. I know you're not going to like that, Austin. I kind of agree.
I think honestly, the Eagles beat the shit out of this team. I'm not gonna lie. Like I'm like confident in the spread.
It all depends on how
If Kirk's back, if Kirk plays like he did last week, they're getting fucking shit on. But if Kirk plays well, like if Kirk plays like Kirk, then anyone can stay with it. Like Kirk's that guy, you know, like he keeps games close. But if he plays like he did last week, they're getting destroyed.
Yeah, and I think too, the offensive coordinator was a big issue last week. Like as limited as Kirk looked, you can't have it where out of shotgun, 80% of plays are pass plays, and out of pistol, every single play is a running play. I don't remember if those are the exact numbers, but it was something ridiculous to the point where they tried to run a play action at one point and like leave TJ Watt as the read basically. TJ Watt didn't even think about the fact that it could have been play action. He immediately just went to go tackle Bijan and blew up the play. So when you have no real threat in a play action, the defense knows exactly what you're going to do every time you line up. It's never going to work. Now, that was week one. I'm pretty sure it's this offensive coordinator's first time calling plays. Everybody saw it, so we're going to assume that he's going to learn from his mistakes. And I think the Falcons can flip the script a little bit.
Yeah, I mean they have to. So I can't disagree there. I think Falcons money line is just like I don't think anyone's confidently putting that out as like a play like for their confident. You know, like I think it's a lotto piece that people might include, but I don't like. I think you're just trying to be against the grain if you're picking Falcons money line. I don't think they've shown anything worth like beating this Eagles team. we saw the Packers look good against the Colts last week. The Eagles obviously handled the Packers with 3 turnovers. I expect them to turn it over less. I don't know.
I think the Eagles are the better team and should win, but I also do think they're being overvalued right now. And I think the Falcons are being undervalued. So, like, the spread's 5.5. I think it should be like 3.5. So, keep the points.
We'll
I'd
see.
rather have the long shot plus money.
Yeah, that's fair. We'll
on the
see.
money line. But no, I'm with you. I think the Eagles are better. They should win. But this is a scenario where I wouldn't be surprised if the Falcons surprised some people. Especially apparently this week was the week of the underdog. What, 9 of 15?
I was gonna say that
underdogs won?
next. Yeah.
Yeah, so why not
We
finish
saw the Vikings handled the Niners with ease.
Sam Darnold, baby.
Yeah, and I was saying the Niners are the best team in the NFC, so who knows, I mean,
Damn shrank the Lions after. Did you see that, by the way? The Lions doubled the Bucks in like every offensive stat, yards, first downs, everything, and somehow still lost.
yeah,
They were 1 for 7 in the red zone.
that Bucks team makes 0 sense to me, but they just keep winning games. So
1 for 7 in the red zone. It's not fun being a Lions.
Lions could easily be 0-2 right now.
I know. We could easily be 2-0 too.
Yeah, but I mean that game against the Rams, like,
thank God they went back to 0-2.
Same. Ravens 0-2 is crazy.
Yeah.
I would not have ever said that.
I think we'll wrap it up here. Thank you to everybody who is showing love and being active in the chats. Austin, always good to see you, my man. We got hopefully a great Monday Night Football game, and you guys will be seeing us again soon. Take care, everybody.